Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast Redesigning Normal. I'm your host, Andrew Southern, and today I'm joined by Mark Gray, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Bottleneck Management, which is a company based out of Chicago that has 15 restaurants around the country. Mark, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Can you explain to the audience a little bit maybe about your company, Bottleneck, and your role in the company?
Sure. My role in the company is I essentially run day-to-day operations. I report up to an ownership group, so they kind of act as a board slash CEO. But as far as all the day-to-day operations, running of HR, marketing, operations, IT, all of the different department heads all report up through me, and responsible for putting together the strategy and initiatives for the brand.
How
A
did
little
you?
bit about Bottleneck. How I describe us, for lack of a better term, is an upscale sports bar. So we put a lot of time and energy into our AV package. All of the founders are big sports guys, so it's a great place to go and watch a game. But what we haven't done is left behind, what I think is a best in class culinary and beverage program. So our restaurants have as many as 90 plus beers on tap, with a huge emphasis on local beers. But we've also got 30% of our menu, I think, could live on a fine dining menu somewhere. So we offer
Wow.
some more upscale offerings as far as just great pub and bar fare. So it's a nice mix, and it's a great place to go if you want to catch a game and also have a great dining experience.
Awesome. And I know that there's a number of different restaurant uh, names that you guys have, like in your
Sure.
portfolio. What is? Can you just let us know some of them?
Yeah, yeah, we have a couple of definitely more kind of flagship premier type locations in downtown Chicago. Run up one in right on Michigan Avenue.
Oh wow.
So that's our Sweetwater restaurant, right there in the main district, in the tourist district down there. Then we've got another restaurant, South Branch, which is a beautiful restaurant right on the river, in the financial district. So those are two more one-off brands that are very, very location driven. And then we have our growth vehicle, which is the CityWorks slash Old Town Poorhouse. Those two, those are essentially the same brand,
Okay.
operating under two different flags. And so what dictates the name is really driven by the market. If we look at a particular location or an area and we feel like, what, this makes sense for Old Town Poorhouse. Or if it's more of a lifestyle center, more contemporary, then we're going to move forward with the CityWorks name. But they operate very similar menus, very similar beverage programs. We just kind of do it under two different flags.
Got it.
We've got we also have a event center in Pittsburgh as well, called Winter Garden, where it's a beautiful event where people do weddings, large corporate events, things like that, and it's really attached to our CityWorks concept in downtown Pittsburgh.
That sounds great. So, and you guys are in 5 states?
8 states.
Oh, 8 states. Wow.
8 states, yeah, yeah, we're
So
getting there.
you travel a lot then?
A lot, yeah, a lot. Well, I haven't this year. I'm
No,
sure we'll get
no.
into that, but yeah, not so much this year. But yeah, under normal conditions, there's a lot of travel.
So how did you become the chief operating officer of this company?
Yeah, I mean, going back, I mean, my career in the restaurant business is, I think everyone has the same story. You're kind of going to school for something else, but you're working in a restaurant. It becomes a little intoxicating. It's a great environment for some. And so as I was going to school for something else, I was working in a restaurant and realized that that's what I wanted to do. And
Hmm.
went to culinary school and just started working my way up from there. Mostly came up in kitchens. So most of my background is culinary, and but as I moved up, I went through the corporate chain with Brinker, and they owned Chili's, and at the time they owned On the Border. So I was with those two brands for a long time.
Sure.
And I went to work for Yard House, which was it's obviously an amazing brand, and I was with them, early on. and was able to get promoted up to a director of operations role there. And then from there, kind of parlayed that into a role with a growing concept out of the Midwest called Hopcat, where I eventually became the CEO and was with them for about 5 years. And when I left there, came here. And
Wow.
it's been great. Yeah.
So you like complex problems because like I don't feel like hospitality in general and restaurants in particular are like to me like super complex, right? Even if just you have
It's
one restaurant.
I had it described to me one time, and it's always stuck with me as it's part theater. It's 50% theater and 50% military execution.
That
So
makes sense.
it's the front of the house side is the theater portion, but on the back of the house side and the heart of the house side, you got to really have that military execution mentality so that they can execute the theater portion. And I think
Right.
that's a pretty apt description.
Where do you feel more comfortable at a restaurant in the
In the
back
kitchen.
or in
Oh
the
no,
kitchen?
in the kitchen. Yeah, it's been a great part of. I mean, one of the real advantages for me in my career was eventually moving into the front of the house operations, but having a kitchen background. That's
Okay.
been a real differentiator for me, and it's helped me along in my career. So I was able to, function up front. Did become a general manager and a front of the house director of operations. I did do all that, but having a strong culinary base has been something that was, very very helpful. And I encourage anybody getting into the business to try to take that same route. It will do you well.
It sounds like a great. I mean, your story is amazing.
It's,
Let me ask you a
you're
little bit
welcome.
about the past year. What happened in the past year? So,
Yeah.
early 2020, you were in this same role you're in now, right? And you guys are humming along with your restaurants. And at some point, I'm guessing February or March, COVID-19 was whispered in your ear, and it became clear somehow that it
Yeah.
was going to affect you.
Yeah, we were, I would say like a lot of folks, as it was, the news was breaking in December and January, we were frankly kind of oblivious, we knew it was out there. We all watched the news. We knew something was kind of going on, but in the past we had those other scares, H1N1, swine flu, bird
Sure.
flu, like those things, they hit a news cycle and they just kind of go away. It definitely has some impact, not much. And I think at that point, we just kind of assumed that this would be more of the same. Then in February, I think we began to realize that was not going to be the case. And the real unfortunate part for us is that a huge percentage of our company is in Illinois, in
Hmm.
Chicago. In January, February, I don't know if I've been in Chicago in January, February, but there's not a lot of people going out.
Right.
Those aren't great months for us anyway. And so we batten down the hatches and try to be as fiscally responsible during that time as we can, because we know sales are already tough. In the best of times,
Right.
sales are very tough in those months. We count on March and April. March is St. Patrick's Day, which is great for our brands. We also get March Madness.
Hmm.
It's one of our busiest months of the year, so we count on the month of March to kind of replenish the coffers a little bit, and because we know that we're essentially going to be operating, break even or maybe even at a loss in January and February.
Got it.
So March is big for us. It reminds us that we're not terrible at things, and things are going to get back to normal. So we're
Right.
coming out of February, and right as we are getting ready to have all of these big St. Patrick's Day events, March Madness, everything, we're just watching everything get canceled one by one by one. And so that, those sales that we are accustomed to getting, we knew weren't going to be there.
Right.
And you're coming off of January and February, which are already rough. So for us, it was a lot of high anxiety, and I'm betting that that's the case for a lot of concepts, especially concepts focused on with a heavy bar mix or focused on sports.
Right.
You really need March, and for
Right.
us it was tough.
So you shut down the restaurants?
We did. I
Okay.
mean, we operated as long as we could in as many locations as we could, but
Right.
we really we really followed all of the municipality mandates to a T.
Got it.
You just have to you just have to operate like that. And so we were very careful. And in our model, unfortunately, we were in a position, and like I know a lot of other casual dining restaurants where we didn't have this giant to-go infrastructure.
Right.
We're an experiential concept. Come
Sure.
in, watch a game. Half of our sales, almost 40% of our sales, are alcohol, which you can't deliver in most places. So for us to pivot immediately to a heavy to-go platform, we weren't there. We didn't have that infrastructure in place. So we actually lost less money by closing. And I think that's something that a lot of folks didn't realize, is that by staying open and trying to operate to go, we actually would have lost more money under that circumstance than just by shuttering the whole company. And, a lot of folks just, why don't you just do to go? Well, I wish it were just that easy. For some concepts, you were able to pivot and do very well.
Yep.
And, good for them for being well positioned. We weren't positioned to do that.
Right. That's not the brand you described earlier. It was like the brand you described earlier is an awesome place to meet other people, and have a drink and watch a game.
Yeah. Very, very event driven, and not just events for what's on TV, but,
right.
For corporate places doing a happy hour for all of their employees and things like that. I mean, that's what our brand is built on.
I mean, I've been down to the Mart. Is that near one of your locations?
I'm not
the merchandise Mart in
yeah.
Right. So like after you go to something at the merchandise Mart, like an expo or something, you would come and flood restaurants sort of in that area. And I imagine
exactly right.
Right.
That's our whole deal. And we just didn't have that. And we had two of our best performing locations, like I mentioned, are right downtown Chicago. And you could have shot a cannonball down Michigan Avenue and not hit a soul as this was breaking. So it was pretty brutal.
Was that the same in the other states as well, or did you find maybe a little bit less restrictions elsewhere?
Well, we do have two locations in Texas and one in Florida. They were less aggressive, but we still had to shut those locations down during the peak point of the pandemic. They did reopen quicker, and they're relaxing their restrictions sooner. But we still had to close.
So you're closed, right? And I've described this in the past. It's been described to me as like being in an elevator and not knowing, like you're stuck in the elevator and you don't know when the elevator is going to start moving again. It's not so much like you're in the elevator. It's like, how long is this going to last for?
Sure.
So what then happens that like you get the sort of green light that you can open, and then you've got to implement what? And I imagine there's a whole organization looking at you being like, what do we do to do this correctly to keep all the team members safe and of course the customers?
Sure. Well, even backing up a little bit, what are we going to do so that we can reopen?
Okay.
How do we reduce our cash burn? What are our action steps to make sure that we actually have the liquidity to buy inventory when we reopen? What are we going to do? And so that was kind of the big thing was how do we get through this? Because like I said, we had burned down a lot of that balance sheet in January and February, just operating at a negative that we count on March. And so not having a lot of those cash reserves going into the shutdown is what resulted in, frankly, a lot of layoffs.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was tough. It was for us, and our story's not unique at all in the industry, but we laid off about 1,500 people. Oof. And those are tough. Those are tough conversations. A lot of folks been with us a very long time.
Sure, yeah.
And I think we got all the way down to maybe just 7 or 8 total employees in the company, and the remaining employees all took really, really significant cuts.
Sure.
Just to help us get through that. So
wow.
But during the shutdown, we did realize, okay, if we're going to emerge out of this, we know that guest behaviors are going to change. So my own behaviors, right? I never once had groceries delivered to my house ever. And now I don't know that I'll ever go back to the grocery store.
Right.
So we did know that, okay, emerging out of this, we have to have a to-go platform. We do have to incorporate this. And we want to be that experiential concept again, but we know that this also, enough guest behaviors are changing that we have to be able to compete for those guests as
Mhm.
well. And
Got it.
so during the shutdown, that was a big focus for us, was streamlining our platforms, bringing on the right types of partners. And the most creative thing we did was we actually created a virtual brand. So this brand lives only online. It's not a brick and mortar
Sure.
concept.
The ghost kitchen concept, right?
Yeah, a little different in that we operated out of our kitchens.
Sure. Okay.
So in each one of our restaurants, each kitchen is executing two brands.
Got it.
So we launched Secret Sauce Barbecue. And so when we opened, we already had good smokers in our restaurants, and we already had a good kind of base of that.
Sure.
And we had been thinking about expanding on that line for the CityWorks Old Town Poorhouse anyway. So as we shut down, we thought, okay, well, let's not expand that line of food in CityWorks and Poorhouse. Let's create a whole new concept. So when we reopen, we'll have better delivery partners. We'll have more streamlined process in-house.
Sure.
And now the locations that have reopened, about half of them are operating Secret Sauce right now, and we're seeing giant success from them.
So this is like you said, it's a virtual brand that has its own ID, it has its own menu, it has its own look and feel, and it
Correct.
exists on like DoorDash or something.
Yes, yeah, you can. Well, you can order it through our website now, and we
Cool.
also have an app. But then you can also go on DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub,
Awesome.
and find it there. But the delivery drivers come to CityWorks and pick it up.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of folks don't even realize, but it's worked great. That has been definitely one of our more strategic decisions.
Sure. And I would imagine actually that particular cuisine, which you're describing as probably like a barbecue kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
it is. Yeah.
That as a takeout works, right? Whereas
Exactly.
some other things on your varied menus are great in person and may not travel as well. So like it makes sense to use that.
Yeah, we were careful to pick. You know, to go is tough.
Mhm.
It's very, especially when you're counting on third-party deliveries, and they've gotten a lot better.
Sure.
But we're counting on this other service to get the food to our guest hot. It's very difficult. Guests, you know, if the food shows up cold, it's not going to be Postmates' fault. It's not
Right.
going to be. It's going to be our fault. You know, so you know, picking a cuisine that carries well, travels, stays hot if it's packaged correctly, and then also just down the road thinking we wanted to make sure that we could pivot this into a catering model as well.
Mhm.
And barbecue's great for that. So we just wanted to make sure that we were thinking with the end in mind, and that's why we picked barbecue.
Smart. So you had some really like deliberate thoughts about this. And I guess that's one of the few benefits of sort of slowing everything else down, that you can like take a look and say, okay, let's be very strategic about how we're going to build our to-go platform and how we're going
Yeah,
to do this.
I've never had more office time
Right.
than during the pandemic. So we definitely were able to be pretty methodical in what our approach was going to be.
So then how did you, so you sort of ramped that up, and I imagine, are you guys open again with your restaurants across the
We
board?
have every location open with the exception of one. And
Okay.
that one we're holding back on because we're doing a little bit of remodeling. And that will be open at the end of April.
Great. Okay. So and then you have of course, to reopen a restaurant is a difficult thing, and you had to do it 14 times.
Yeah, this part has been very tough, and I think, and again, I know I'm not alone. I have so much empathy for the entire restaurant industry right now. All my
Mhm.
friends and cohorts over the years are all going through the same things. Staffing right now is impossible.
Really?
Yeah, it's our number one challenge, and there's a couple of things that are creating an environment that in 25 years I've never seen. So with all of the restaurants reopening all at the same time, you've got a disproportional amount of people that have left the industry. You know,
Okay.
maybe they're working at Home Depot now or Lowe's. But
Right.
anyway, workforce has never been smaller than it is currently. You've never had more restaurants aggressively hiring all at the same time.
Okay.
You've got some folks that are opting out, you know, as long as the unemployment benefits are what they are. There's going to be some folks that stay out of the workforce.
Sure.
And so you've got this combination of things all happening at once that's, making it the most competitive environment for employees that I've ever seen. While the good news is that our guests are returning very quickly, like
Hmm.
sales are coming back faster than we would have anticipated,
Right.
which is a blessing, but we're also struggling to get our teams staffed back
I,
up. Just
I mean, I would imagine from an operations perspective, the first people you would want to go out to are your original team members that unfortunately you had to part ways with early, right?
Yeah, well, everyone's been offered their job
Yeah.
now, and I think that's without exception. And so all of the hourly team members, but unfortunately, we've had a lot of people leave
Sure.
the industry, and they had obligations, right? Unemployment wasn't, maybe they didn't qualify for unemployment, or
Yeah.
maybe unemployment wasn't going to cover their needs, so they had to pivot and go get a different job, and those have been some heartbreaking losses. And so I think everybody's going through that right now, and we're
Yeah.
just trying to. The PPP has been aggressive and has been quite helpful,
Sure.
and so it's put everybody in a position of ramping up very, very quickly. So right now it's a real competition for team members.
Yeah, I was actually oddly you've described a marketplace for talented, personable people to work in restaurants as basically like those people have their pick of a job at the moment.
100%.
Okay.
We are at this point, we're probably, whereas before we might have had guidelines like, we want 2 years of restaurant experience or this. Right now, we're looking for awesome personalities, maybe has retail background,
Hmm.
but folks that we can get in and train. Whereas before, I don't think we would have been quite as liberal on the experience. But right now, we are, just going to rely on our training programs to help get folks up to speed.
And that's you're hearing. Obviously, you must be hearing the same thing from your like peers that are in the industry, being like, "Man, we can't
Everywhere.
find people." Like,
It's the heart of the house teams are coming back a little. I'm finding for us. I don't know if it's the same
sure,
for everybody. We are able to get our kitchen teams staffed up a little
okay,
bit easier, a little bit quicker. But front of the house has been the real challenge.
got it. And then from a guest perspective, as people are returning, um, I think we sort of talked about the team a little bit. So from a guest perspective, what are they asking for? What are they expecting beyond the same experience that I'm sure
Yeah.
you can offer them, right? Like from a safety perspective, is there something in particular you're hearing or from the guests?
Yeah, it's different.
Okay,
It's by market. Well,
sure.
everybody is expecting some basics, right? And one thing I'm not sure if it ever comes back. We're having quite an internal battle here. Is physical menus.
Okay.
Everyone's pivoted to the QR code menu, and
Yeah.
it works great.
Hmm.
And from an operationally, it's way easier for us to manage menus. It cuts costs down. There's no printing.
Sure.
Like there's tons of advantages, and so I'll be very interested to see if there's a demand for physical menus to come back. Right now, there's not.
Okay.
It's one of those things that I think guests have gotten very acclimated to. Everyone likes to use their own mobile device.
It's funny. I
Uh,
hadn't even thought about the fact that the QR codes are dynamic. It's like basically it opens a link, right, and there's your menu. But you guys could change that menu anytime. Like you could take
yeah,
stuff
it,
that's not
it's done.
available in the kitchen in real time. You could like take it off the menu.
It's done at an enterprise level, and it's
Wow.
just like that. And you can't do that with physical
No.
menus. And
I-
anytime you have a food rollout, like one of the most comprehensive things that a restaurant company will do is when it's launching new items.
right.
Well, the amount of work that takes to coordinate with your menus, and different regions are going to have different prices and all that stuff. And you have to get all that printed and coordinated and make sure that everything's been vetted and
Right.
sending that stuff out. Now, it used to be in the old days, if you sent out a menu and you had a typo, God forbid, which would happen from time to time, we had to reprint all those menus,
Sure.
reship all those menus.
Yep.
Now you just go in and you could just change it. And so,
Huh.
you know, uh, I miss the physical menus personally as a guest. Like, I kind of just want to look at a menu,
Yeah.
but it's a lot easier from an operations perspective to have the QR code. So we're going to give the guests what they want. And if there's demand for it, we're going to go back to physical menus for sure. But right now, there's no call for it, so we're going to wait and see how that plays out.
Got it. Yeah. So like your front of house staff will tell you like, hey, everyone's complaining that there's like no menus. They want menus in their hand. You're like, okay, we'll do it.
Guests will tell you too. Social media, has really changed all industries, and we get lots of feedback. And if you're paying attention to that and monitoring it, which we do very, very closely, the guests will let you know what they're looking for, and with all the different feedback platforms that are out there. But yeah, between that and in-house feedback, we'll know when it's time, and we're ready to make the change back if we have to.
Sure.
But we'll wait and see. But outside of that, it's the typical things. We've got at least 4 sanitizing stations in each location. We've got cleaners working the restaurants. We've got heightened procedures if an employee or a guest reports that they were in the building with COVID. We have an enhanced nightly cleaning that we do in those situations. So,
sure.
We're in a lot of restaurants are taking all of those same steps.
Yep. Yeah, I would imagine so. Because I'm a very good restaurant goer, right? So I'm very good at don't totally understand all the workings of the business, but I understand what the experience is and what I like, right? And I think now, from a very average person's perspective, to see some of those additional cleaning things occurring, right, or to understand that the space is even cleaner than it was, back before, makes me feel good, right? Makes me feel like I'm being taken care of in another way, beyond the food and beverage and all that. It's like, okay, cool. This place is also like a safe place to sit,
Well, it's for the guest, for sure, but it's also to make we have our team is there.
Sure. Yep.
And we have a real obligation to signal to them that you're here working, you're on the front lines of this, interacting with, dozens and dozens of people every day. We're going to do what we can to make sure that you feel comfortable. And, just like guests, we have team members that have varied degrees of concern about this. Some not so much, some very concerned. And so we've got to make sure that we're, in a position to take care of the entire spectrum.
Amazing. So what do you think, and I'd like to say, so it's the end of March 2021 when we're talking, and things are looking better with a vaccine program. And I actually think that maybe the news is saying there's a bit of an uptick at the moment. But I think fundamentally people understand that we're sort of heading in the right direction. Yes. What havens from the pandemic and lessons learned do you think will survive beyond the pandemic? Let's say we're having another conversation a year from now in 2022. What do you think will still be around? The to-go business, it sounds like, right? The strength in to-go business.
Yeah.
What other things do you think that you will maintain?
We touched on the menu one already.
Yep.
And I also think that restaurants that were in our position are going to take a hard look at making sure that your entire platform, however you get there, is going to be a little bit diversified. Not that we're looking towards the next pandemic, but as a business model, we had a lot of eggs in one basket. And if we're shut down for events, there wasn't a place for us to go.
Okay.
And so I just think as we innovate on the go forward, in the event that something like this ever happened, and I know it's a once every 100 year, is our track right now, but you have to learn from these things so that if something similar happens for whatever the reason, maybe it's not a pandemic, it could be another reason that you get shut down,
right?
There's a revenue stream there that you can rely on to kind of keep the lights on and to keep things going.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I think it will affect not just the safety and sanitation things that I think our team members and our guests are going to just expect forever now.
Yep.
But I think it's going to affect all of our decision making in the future.
Right. Like how does this decision make us more resilient? Right. Like that now is like factoring in, whereas it never did before, because who would have imagined a thing that
never thought about?
Right.
It just never came up. And so I think what, it's going to have implications for how we manage our balance sheet. It's going to have implications on all, we're coming out of this knowing that cash is king, and we've got to be more careful. And restaurants are in general don't carry big balance sheets. That's why a lot of folks were not able to get through that. We're a
Sure.
little larger organization, so we had some access to capital that other folks might not have, and so we were very lucky
Yep.
that we were able to get some funding very quickly from our partners. But the had that not been there, we just wouldn't have made it.
Sure.
And so this has us rethinking things a lot. So some of those procedures are probably going to be forever.
Sure.
Decisions, the sanitizing stations, the maybe menus never come back. Focus on to go. All of that stuff will be evergreen now. But I think this is going to affect every decision we make in the future.
Mark, there's another thing that's coming, and you probably have better data than I have on it, but I have I can feel it, which is that when it's safe to do so, everyone, I believe, is going to be like this. You're going to have an awesome summer. I think people are going to just crush food and beverage and all hospitality.
We're actually already starting to see signs of that.
Yeah.
While we're not right now, we're benching our results versus 19. I mean, we're
Yeah, of course.
not benching against 20 because
it's the last year.
But we're looking at 19, and we are getting closer to 19's revenues faster than we anticipated we would. There's a real appetite there. There's a real catch-22 with that, though. The folks in the industry, we want to see that business return, but we also want to see this virus go away.
Yeah, of course.
So I have a real, and a lot of folks in my position, we have a real kind of tug of war with these municipalities that are, releasing all restrictions and getting rid of all of it. Like, a piece of me loves it for the business, but a piece of me knows that could string this thing on longer.
Right.
And so I would love to see a more balanced approach, as far as mask mandates and things like that. Let's keep the smart things in place.
Sure.
While we open up responsibly. I want to get open, but I don't want to look at, I'm not looking at tomorrow's sales. I want to know that sales are going to be secure in November.
Right, exactly. And if that takes a month or two longer of
yes, we've
decreased,
made it this far.
Right.
Yes, we've made it this far. Let's begin the reopening process for sure. Let's let restaurants get open. Let's let them have some capacity, but let's not go so aggressive on releasing all mandates that we're going to string along this virus and allow these variants to take hold. I mean, let's just be smart. We've come this far. We're at the finish line here. Let's not fall down now.
I feel like that's the perfect operating officer answer. You know what I mean? It's very that's a good measured approach, and it's absolutely correct. I also understand that there's people that are just they want to go to the bar and just take some shots, and sit at the bar, they're just dying for that,
Yeah, and it's going to happen. I mean, even my wife and kids, they're in Florida. They were able to get signed up for the vaccine. I mean, we're getting close.
Yep.
So, it's all happening right now. And I think if we're just diligent for 6 to 8 more weeks,
yep,
we could really have this thing behind us. And then come on out.
You'll see me out there for sure.
I'm ready.
Mark, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast. I really appreciate the conversation. I think it's been really great for everybody to hear.
Awesome. I appreciate the time.